So let me begin by saying it seemed for a while, I know we talked to people like, David Hertel, we talked, of course, to Tom Mulcair. For a while, it seemed that you'd lost a bit of momentum. Pierre Poilievre had kind of seized that. Now we're starting to see exactly the opposite happen. I'm looking at a new Ipsos poll, a new Abacus data poll, suggesting that your support is actually shoring up a bit. So let me ask you, first of all, what you think that is from. Why is that happening now, in your opinion?
Well, Aaron, it takes a while to move the dial if you start a leadership race. I mean, you just don't walk in and all of a sudden people hear you and they start voting for you. They need to hear your policies and get to a sense of who you are, and that's what we've seen. The dial has moved in my direction. The Angus Reid poll that was put out a week ago is very, very compelling. What it says is that I would win in Ontario, Poilievre would lose in Ontario, I would win in the Atlantic, he would lose, I'd win in Quebec. I mean, after watching both candidates, Canadians are saying to the members of the party the candidate they want is Charest. And so that's a very, very good sign. The Ipsos poll also indicates an 18% swing of my favorables since the beginning of the race. So all good news. The challenge, though, in the end, is that this is a point system. It's very difficult to have a reading. It's 100 points per riding. So no matter how many members you have, whether it's 7,000 or 700, it's still 100 points. And that's what you have to work on to be smart and efficient in getting your vote out.
As I look at the numbers, you cited the Angus Reid poll, and yes, it says you would win Ontario and, perhaps go on, obviously, and win Quebec, where you're better known. It also shows that Pierre Poilievre would win in Alberta, win in the prairies, which suggests to some people this is a fractured party. One that, works from Ontario West and another one that works from Ontario East. So how do you bring that together?
That has been our story since the election of Andrew Scheer's leader. The party has overwhelming support in the West, which includes Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Alberta, mostly Alberta and Saskatchewan. But and that's been the story for Aaron O'Toole. But that has not put us in government because we haven't been able to win seats in the Greater Toronto area, and which has 53 seats, but only 4 of them are Conservative, or in the lower mainland of British Columbia, or again in Montreal. So that's where we need to win. The difference between government and opposition is my leadership in this race, because I win in the places that will put us in government.
Okay, and so we've spoken before about, again, like Aaron just mentioned, how the party is fractured. There's a lack of unity here, and I'm sure you can't really give us a straight answer since your eye is on this prize. But let's just imagine that this doesn't work out, that you don't win this. Where do those voters, your supporters, where do they land? Would you consider starting a new party for them?
This idea of starting a new party is a non-starter. There's only one national alternative to the Liberal Party of Canada, and it's the Conservative Party, and it's for the Conservative Party of Canada, Natasha, to get their act together and to be the national party that Canadians want us to be. They want us to be an alternative. They're saying to us, get yourselves organized and present a strong economic vision. Be national in your scope. Canadians, I know, would like to have a national government with representatives in every region of the country. They'd feel happy that was the case, because it means then that we can work as a country to get big things done. And so that's where the challenge is. And creating another new party is not on anyone's agenda. That would be, at best, a 10-year proposal. Certainly not something that I'm interested in doing.
I want to ask a question. I found this in the Angus Reid poll quite interesting. They suggest, regardless of who led the party, whether it's you or Pierre Poilievre, it seems support for Conservatives nationwide has actually increased, which is unusual given there's no leader of the party. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's part of the bump you get in a leadership race. Parties who are in leadership races usually do get a bit of a bump, and it also speaks to the fact that the federal Liberals under Mr. Trudeau are failing. I mean, they're in a tough position right now. They've been in government for a number of years. There, you do get a sense of listlessness, and by the way, it's reflected in what we're seeing. I have never seen, Aaron, the federal government in such bad shape. Not able to run a passport office. The airports are a disaster. It's chaotic. And the immigration department has huge problems. I've never seen the federal government be in such a bad form as it is now, not unable to deliver services.
All right, well, let me ask you this, though. One of the key things, and we keep hearing this more and more from the general population, is the inflation issue that we're dealing with right now. People are wondering, how the hell do we get out of this? How long is this going to last? It's affecting so many Canadians. What's your plan here?
It's the number one issue in the country right now, and it connects to affordability of housing because they are connected. And there's not, there's no magic wand, but there are things you can do that will help you counterbalance inflation. The first one is to reduce government spending because it does feed into inflation. The second thing we could do is what I did during the financial and economic crisis, and that's reduce personal income taxes so that people's disposable income is protected or either goes up. And those are the two things you can do. Now, in the midterm, we need to control spending because we're going to have this inflation for a while, and the central banks admittedly got it wrong all over the world. The assumption was that the inflation we were having when it started would be temporary. Well, it's not. It has to do, and no one saw the war in Ukraine come. Wars are inflationary. Supply chains are a problem. The American spending and the American inflation feeds our inflation, by the way. It's by 2 to 3 points. And they have higher inflation than we do. So now we're just going to have to, pull the hatchets down, reduce spending, and work at all the things that reduce that inflation.
I'd like to ask you about this piece that appears in La Presse today. Tasha Sheridan, 14 other influential women, including Kathleen Weil, my M&A in NDG, saying that women should vote, should support Jean Charest. Why are you the candidate for women to vote for?
Well, I'm flattered that they would do that, and obviously these are people who are, Tasha is a co-chair of my campaign, Tasha Sheridan, for whom I have a lot of time, and she just penned a book called The Right Path, which is a huge success. And these are people who worked with me. And, when you get into these campaigns, and I've been in political life for a while, I think it's important that those who worked with me in the past testify to that experience and whether it was conclusive or not. Now, on the issue of women, it's one of the things in my whole political life that was important to me. My wife, Michelle, was very influential on this issue for me. And I had the first gender parity government in North America in 2007. We did a law to ensure gender parity on the principal state-owned corporations, including Quebec and la Caisse de dépôt and la Société des Alcools. We did all of that. And we did a number of things for families that were very significant. There are issues in this race, Natasha, for women. For example, I'm the only one who has said that I'm going to maintain the agreements of the federal government with the provinces on daycare. Mr. Poilievre refuses to speak to that. Well, I suspect him that he wants to cut spending. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he cut spending in those daycare programs, as the Harper government did when they got elected in 2006. And if that's the case, then women who are going to be voting in this leadership campaign need to know that that's his plan.
I want to ask one thing before we run out of time. So there's a debate tomorrow night, of course. Famously, Pierre Poilievre has said he won't, in fact, debate. I know you've chided him on that. It's not going to make a difference. He's not going to appear. But I want to ask one question with respect to what Natasha just asked on women posting this op-ed today. You've made it very clear where you stand on a woman's right to choose, but you suggest Pierre Poilievre has been ambiguous on this, although it seems to me at the last debate when you asked him where he stood, he went out of his way to say, no, I support that. So why are we still saying he's ambiguous?
Well, because he's moved around a lot on the debate. He had to be pushed into it to finally, come out with a position, which isn't very reassuring. He voted in his previous political life in the House of Commons against women's rights, and on an issue like daycare, he's silent. He won't speak out. And on Roe versus Wade, he's one of the few who's refused to react to Roe versus Wade. He's gone silent. And whether you are pro-abortion or pro-life, one way or the other, people and women in particular deserve to know where the leaders stand on this issue, because as we know, nothing is in cement. There's nothing that is permanent in regards to politics. who would have thought that Roe versus Wade would have changed? And I think those who are concerned by this issue, women in particular, want to know where their leaders stand and whether they are firm in their positions or whether they're just pandering to one constituency.
We're out of time. I want to thank you for your time. I will simply ask you this. So you're in this debate tomorrow night. Are you more encouraged now than you would have been, say, a month ago by your chances, given what you've seen and heard?
I am more encouraged, but people, Aaron, have to vote. The members that were listening to us today have to vote. And that's what will determine winning or losing. It's getting out the vote. Thank you. Thank you to Natasha.
Always
Appreciate
great to talk
your time.
to you.
Thanks so much, Jean Charest. Yeah, and he'll be in that debate tomorrow night,
and voting has
Pierre
begun.
Poilievre won't.
No, he will not. And Leslie Lewis will not be there either, right? Voting has begun, by the way. The ballots went out about at least a week ago now. I'd be curious to see.